Win, baby. Commitment to excellence, the will to win. We'd like to get Robert Spillane in the Pro Bowl. I think he's done enough.
What are you talking about? It's 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl caliber.
That's why we got to talk about it.
I got to cut you off on this one.
Yep.
He's one of the best linebackers in football.
This guy, when you watch him play, he's a football player. Where they're able to put him on the field, it just makes him limitless.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown. I'm live at Raiders headquarters, and we're live on the Raiders YouTube channel, and I'm excited to be here. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you as we begin this final broadcast of 2024 on this platform, something we were talking about for a while, and we pulled it off, and we want to thank you, everyone in the Raider Nation, everyone around the world who follows the Raiders on YouTube and joins us as we put together this show every week, and then we turn it into a TV show here in Vegas. And as I begin, I want to thank the entire team on the other side of the wall at Silver and Black Productions for making this easy and making it a pleasure here. And thank you very much as we're rolling it out here one more time, and we'll keep it going hopefully in the offseason. But the Raiders had another victory, 2 in a row. They went into New Orleans where they won for the first time since 2016, and they put out their best game of the year. Their best game of the year in every category. They didn't turn it over. They turned it over twice. Aiden O'Connell played well. Amir Abdullah. Brock got the records. You know, I'm a big Brock guy. That's fantastic. And then time of possession, almost 38 minutes. Look, New Orleans isn't a powerhouse, but the Raiders went in there and dominated them. Absolutely dominated them. And they needed to win in that building. They only go to that building. That's an NFC team. Every 4 to 8 years, you don't know when they're going to go back. Raider Nation spent a lot of money to go, and they delivered an excellent performance. At the end of the year, where they're clearly out of the playoffs, New Orleans is out of the playoffs, but the Raiders went on a business trip, and we'll get to it with head coach coming up here in a little bit, Antonio Pierce. They had some adverse conditions. They had problems with their flight. They had to shut everything down, and they had to spend most of the day here at headquarters. They didn't get in till after midnight, didn't get to bed till 2 in the morning, and then we're all there on time and ready to play, and they dominated. And there's no one pointing fingers. There's no one saying what could have been. They went out and did their job. They're a professional football team, and they played a professional football game, and everybody showed up, and this team has showed tremendous heart all year long. It hasn't showed up in the record books, but there were a couple of individual records in that game that we're really excited to talk about. So that's where we're at. We got one more game coming up against the LA Chargers. Remember last year the Raiders put 63 up on the Chargers, and tip your cap to LA. They're in the playoffs. And Jim Harbaugh in year one has done a nice job getting them to the playoffs. They're a different looking team, and they're going to be a problem for a while for the Raiders. And the Raiders are going to make changes. We don't know what they are in the offseason, and the Raiders will try to get back to dominating and being a team that can get to the playoffs, along with possibly Denver, as they're playing their final game to try to get in, and the best team in football, the Kansas City Chiefs, that are going to stay in this division, and the Raiders are going to have to deal with them for a while. You know, just looking back on what the game meant in New Orleans, look, the number 1 seed is gone. Period. So the word tanking is officially over for this year, if you believe that. If you believe that, I'm not here to argue with you. That is over in 2024. The Raiders are playing a win. Clearly, everybody on this team, in the locker room and the coaches, want to go out with a 3-game winning streak because, as Rich Gannon has told us all year long, and he's a former MVP, that this team wants to have momentum going into the offseason. The draft pick's going to be the draft pick no matter where it is. How about Brock Bowers last year at number 13? You like that pick? Could be one of the greatest Raider draft picks of all time after 1 year. And the Raiders will find out in the offseason where they'll draft. Maybe they'll trade up. We don't know what they're going to do. There's going to be a lot of trade value out there in free agency, free agent players available. But we're here to talk about that last game and preview the Chargers with the great Lincoln Kennedy, who joins us every week and kicks off Raiders Rundown. And Lincoln, to you and your family, Happy New Year coming up, and thanks for everything you do for us.
Blessings to you and yours, JT, and all the Raider Nation of viewers and listeners out there. Thank you for joining us, and it's good to be with you, brother.
Yeah, as we talked about this game going into it, there was Brock Bowers who was going to break some records if he got the targets. He had 7 for 7 and 77 yards. That was good enough to break the all-time Raiders single-season reception record, the all-time tight end record, and the all-time rookie reception record. All of that came together. There was a great photo with him after the game in the locker room with all 3 game balls for that. What was it like, Lincoln, calling such an historic achievement by Brock Bowers?
Well, it was really fun. I mean, you think about it, it's been a long time since the Raiders have had such an impact at the tight end position. Now, people will point back to Darren Waller. Well, the difference is, and I'll certainly accept that for what it's worth, but the difference is Brock Bowers is a better route runner than Darren Waller was, and he's more concise with his route distribution within this offense. There were many times, and not to be too critical of Darren, that I saw him running your routes into the same area. So it's really refreshing to have such a young tight end that really makes it uncomfortable for defenses, because you can't cover him with the linebacker. You can't cover him with a safety. If you're going to double team him, there's going to leave other opportunities open. And we've been able to reap the rewards from that because we've seen the ball being spread around by this offense because of the commitment of defenses to take away Brock Bowers. So it's refreshing to see, JT.
Yeah, Lincoln, I think it comes down to the targets with him. If you target him 12 times, he'll give you 11 receptions. Whatever it is, the amount of targets and his value is getting the ball early. And as we look at some of this for our viewers and our listeners, I'll tell you, 108 receptions, most by a rookie in NFL history, Puka Nacua, and then breaking Darren Waller's record, as Lincoln talked about, and then Mike Ditka's record of over 60 years. And how about this? 1,144 receiving yards, most by a rookie since Amari Cooper. This season got away from the Raiders when it came to the schedule and especially the injuries, and they didn't live up to the hype. But I thought it was very important to stamp this kid's first season with these records, because you know the history as good as anybody, Lincoln. You played on one of the greatest teams when you went to the Super Bowl. Before you, there was Todd Christensen, and there was Dave Casper, and you know Raymond Chester very well. And Raymond was a legendary player in the history of the AFL, NFL. To be included in that group and maybe someday be on the walls of this facility for that, I think is super important.
If you think about that historical breakdown that you just had, JT, how long has it been, aside from Darren Waller, that the Raiders have had as quick of a production and as much production out of the tight end position? You go back to some of those names, that's the 70s and early 80s and stuff like that. So it's been a long time. So I really like what the offense has done. And here's the thing. I think if you take it as a whole, what we saw this past game, and you mentioned it in the opening, this is what the Raiders offense wanted to be. They wanted to have the ability to run the football, to use play action to open up the opportunities downfield, not necessarily commit totally to the pass if you don't have to, but be able to have a balanced offense. And as much as you talked about, JT, in the opening, this was the best game of the Raiders this season. They won by double digits, haven't won on the road since they were in September back in Baltimore. This was by far the best Raiders win throughout this season.
Well, Link, I think they heard you on our pregame show when we were talking about the offensive line and how many new players they might need next year. Maybe that was piped into the locker room in New Orleans, because the offensive line played very well. They had a long drive right out of the gate. They didn't get a touchdown, but they got 3. Finally, we saw a game where they were getting the push. They were blowing up the line of scrimmage. They were moving the line of scrimmage, which opened up for a big first half, especially scrimmage yards for Amir Abdullah.
Double teams at the point of attack. They had great man blocking, great possessive blocking in the sense where they were moving one way and the cutback lanes were there for the running backs to take advantage of. So I was very happy for the offensive line. And hey, if it takes that for this offensive line to play like they did in the Saints, I'll be critical of them every week. I'll talk about people needing jobs left and right, JT, if it comes down to that. But this offense got pushed. And I had watched a lot of film on the Saints defense, and I saw where their weaknesses were, especially between the tackles. And for the most part, their defensive tackles and defensive ends are active, but they're not true penetrators in the sense where they get pushed back like many other teams did, or even like the weeks before when the team played Atlanta and couldn't get any push.
I love the fact that everybody came to play. And I want to get to this again because I'm going to be talking about it the entire hour. You knew how hard it was for you to travel there. And Jason Horowitz, well, the team was delayed significantly. They got in. By the time they hit the pillow, it was 2 in the morning. And you know this better than anybody. Sometimes you can sleep. Sometimes you can't. And everybody knows, set the alarm. They got to get up. And it's in the early window. And they started that fast. They were ready to play. Lincoln, it seemed like they had a chip on their shoulder after the one victory to stack another win and win 2 in a row.
Good for them. Really is. I tip my hat to them. Look, Scott Turner and his offensive staff came out with a plan. I don't know if Scott scripts his first 20 plays, but the plays did work. As you mentioned, that drive to open up the game. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that consistently out of this team. No, they didn't come away with a 7, they came away with a 3, but it's still the start that you have a long drive to open up the game. That resonates and sends shockwaves through opposing defenses when you see stuff like that. So kudos to them. I really tip their hat. As far as the rest goes, guys are resting as they prepare to go on a trip. It's not too, hectic. It is a little bit of a burn when you can't get into your hotel room and get in your bed as quickly as possible. But the same point, that you're going on a business trip. You take care of your body. You got to be responsible. Got to be professional. Sometimes it happens like that. And then even in this case, JT, I think we saw the best out of this team in spite of the difficulties they had getting to New Orleans.
Lincoln, before we get to the Chargers, I just want to mention again his receptions. I'm not saying he's going to get 120 receptions every year. That's hard for anybody to do, but it's just nice that the Raiders have a 100 reception guy in the lineup. Normally, when you have that, you count him as a wide receiver, and that's either wide receiver 1, and sometimes, if you're fortunate, wide receiver 2. So how do you look at his production going forward, considering Jacoby Myers is here, Trey Tucker is here, Michael Mayer is here? They all need the football, but I think the Raiders are going to be active in either free agency or in the draft, bringing in another wide receiver because Devontae Adams is gone, but I look at it as Brock's putting up wide receiver numbers.
Yeah, you're right about that. It just goes to show you how invaluable the tight end position can be, especially when you have a capable route runner who can do slippery in the middle of the field. Look, I've always believed within today's game, within today's confines and rules, JT, that the middle of the field is wide open for many respects, in many ways. And the rules that allow it either give you an automatic first down upon contact or pass interference. So it really works for the offense. Slot receivers and tight ends can be a luxury if you have them, and I think you have that. As far as the outer wide receivers, yes, I do believe the Raiders need to draft a wide receiver. No slight of Jacoby Myers, but to me, he's really not a 1. I believe he's a 2. You got Trey Tucker who can stretch the field. Obviously, we see some passes out of that. It's just as this offense evolves, in my opinion, JT, you've got to find a way to utilize all those weapons to get them involved. It's not necessarily you go to Nate O'Connell and say, okay, this play is for Jacoby Myers or this play is for Trey Tucker. You allow him as your quarterback, whoever you evolve to, you allow them to look and go through the progression. If they're open, they're open. But the big thing is you don't want to force the ball. And that's why you don't want to spoon feed a quarterback information about where they want to go with the football. Take your reads, read through your progressions, make the right read, keep the ball in the offense's hand.
Lincoln Kennedy's our guest. Let's go to the Chargers. Man, their defense is good on third down. They get off the field, and then they give it back to a team that wants to run it and a team that can throw it. The Chargers have a season opposition third down conversion rate of 36%. That's 9th in the league. Right. So the Raiders are coming off a really good game where New Orleans was only 1 of 10 on third down, and the Raiders had one of their best days. This is going to be a critical game at Allegiant Stadium to stay on the field and not give it back to Justin Herbert. And however long he plays, the Chargers might play the starters a half, might play him a quarter, might play him the whole game. We don't know. But Raiders have got to build on that time of possession and their third down conversion rate.
Well, like I said, with the New Orleans game, we saw firsthand what this offense is supposed to look like. The thing is, we came into this season knowing the defense was going to be the strength. The defense has been playing well without the stars. Wilkin, Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz are down, all these guys that are down, but they're still playing well to keep you involved in the games. So I think the defense can do that. I think that the offense, as far as keeping the ball and possessing the ball, is if they can ride along the sort of wave that they created in New Orleans, they're going to set you in the right motion going forward because it shows potentially what you can do. Yes, there still needs to be a fine-tuning of some athletes here and there, but you have an idea of what the philosophy and the outlook is for Scott Turner and his offense and the potential of what they have already in the cabinet of what they can do.
Well, if you're looking for a test, if the Raiders are studying for a test, the Chargers have the best red zone defense, allowing only 44.7% red zone touchdowns. So here's the way I look at it. I get furious when you get in the red zone and you don't throw it in the end zone. You and I have been talking about that for decades now. Get in the red zone and throw it in the end zone. You said it perfectly. This is the league now based on throwing flags. You throw a ball in the end zone to one of these guys, you might get a flag. If you don't throw an interception, an incomplete pass, the Raiders try to run it in, I think, too often. They get inside the 5, they want to prove that they can run it, and then all of a sudden it's third down and they have to pass it. This is a Chargers red zone defense that is very good, led by Derwin James on the back end. Lincoln, when you're short in the field in the red zone and you got Derwin James back there, Bosa and Khalil Mack, what do you recommend to get the ball out there quickly and attack the end zone?
Well, I recommend they load up the line of scrimmage with all their extra offensive linemen as well as the tight ends, and they load up the backfield. Look, I'm an offensive lineman.
Yes.
If we're not getting pushed, I'm not happy. So I want to push the ball. The problem I have with throwing in the red zone ultimately, JT, is that with the inconsistencies and the pass blocking of this offensive line, and you talk about those potent rushers for the Chargers especially, it's hard to have enough time for the receivers to get down and find the openings in the zone or in the area for you to be able to put the ball in. I do think there are opportunities, but you have to have good protection. If you watched a little bit of that game last night with the 49ers and the Detroit Lions, I saw firsthand how their offensive line was able to negate the pertinent rush that the 49ers have notoriously hung their hats on. That's what you've got to do if you're going to be able to throw the ball in the red zone. I am not a big fan of going out of shotgun when you're down the 5, close to the 3-yard line or whatever it is, going in. I'm not a fan of that. I believe you need to take the ball from under center and you need to push. And if it comes down to a part where you got to push, like the Philadelphia Eagles do, then so be it. You push, but you got to push and you got to instill your will. I'm from that mindset. It's up to this offensive line to go out there and slap somebody in the mouth.
Yeah, I'm all for Aiden O'Connell on the sneak, too, inside the 1-yard line. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. He should be able to do this. Yep. Wrapping it up with the great Lincoln Kennedy, the Chargers secondary in week 1. And by the way, I despise this play week 1, week play 18 thing. I don't like it. You play the beginning and the last game. I'm not a fan of that. Yeah. Bowers had 6 receptions for 58 yards. The most tight end yardage allowed by the Chargers all year was Kelsey at 89. So they do a pretty good job here on the tight end, and their secondary allows only 6.7 yards per pass play. That's 5th in the league. So, Lincoln, maybe this is a game, as you're talking about, you got to run it to set up some form of play action, because if you don't have play action and you can't establish the run, the Chargers are just going to sit back and play defense and ball hawk.
Yeah, they made adjustments in that game 1, especially to Devontae Adams' deep dig routes. They put a robber right there in the middle of the field, Derwin James, and took that away. And the Raiders didn't really have an answer for it. Coming into this game, I agree with you. They still need to run the football and need to have some balance. But I do believe they're going to bracket Brock Bowers. I believe you're going to have Derwin James and maybe a linebacker underneath there who will try to take him out of the equation. So there are going to be other opportunities, maybe for Michael Mayer and the 2 tight end set, maybe for Trey Tucker or Jacoby Myers, whomever it might be. There will be other opportunities. Plus, I believe that you have an advantage with Madison and Abdullah on the perimeter with their linebackers catching routes out of the backfield. Whether they are angle routes or curl routes, I think there are opportunities for you to get the ball to your running back. We saw that in week 1. I think because their linebackers are a little bit delayed in getting to their right spots, especially in zone or man-to-man coverage. So I think there are opportunities there as well, JT.
Yeah, Raiders had a really tough year with turnovers, and now they're 30th with minus 15 in differential. The Chargers are plus 11. That's 4th, and that's what Jim Harbaugh was able to do. He came in, he wanted to have ball control. He didn't want Herbert throwing it 40 times a game. And I knew that was going to be the Chargers' evolution. I didn't think it would be this good in year 1 and they'd make the playoffs. So, again, it pains me to say this, but I tip my cap to them for their philosophy. This is going to come down to the turnovers here. Chargers and Raiders both had at least +1 takeaways in the last 3 games. And, Lincoln, there hasn't been a lot of good this year when it comes to the record, but the last 2 games, the turnover differential has been a plus for the Raiders, and that says something.
JT, every coach I've ever played for said if you lose the turnover battle, chances are you're not going to win the football game. It comes down to that. You got to take care of the football. So, Zach, to your point, the Raiders haven't done as good of a job as, say, other teams in the league, and that's the reason, one of the reasons why they're at the record they are right now. So, look, football's simple. It's not a complex game. Take care of the football, do what you need to do, try to score more points than the other team. And, of course, you understand those guys get paid on the other side of the ball too, JT. So this is always a big test, but I'm hoping, in all honesty, JT, I'm hoping the Raiders can finish off with a win, because I don't want to go through the entire division this season over. If you know what I mean. That's
a really good point down the stretch. So, Lincoln, the new year is going to come up here, and we'll talk throughout the offseason, especially on radio. But, the Raiders didn't make the playoffs this year. Going into next year, we all know there's going to be changes when it comes to Well, it could be everything here. There's going to be a lot of different decisions that have to be made, but our offseason is going to be predominantly talking about the draft and free agency in 2025, and the Raiders got a lot of money to spend. Tom Brady's going to be in the building from a quarterback perspective. Mark Davis wants to win. Max Crosby better win. He wants to win. We had the year of Brock Bowers here. So how optimistic are you, man? Because big decisions are going to be made the next couple months here.
I'm very optimistic. The Raiders have what? I think 8 draft choices off the top of my head, as I'm looking at it in front of me. 8 draft choices, cap space, and they're right now they're cap friendly. Yes, they need to re-sign some of the guys that they have. I think that'll be invaluable to the team. Some guys like Merrick and those guys moving forward. But the thing is that they have potential because they have options. If it comes down to it, as we look at the draft and once we get closer to it, no matter what the record is for the Raiders, I believe they have an opportunity because a lot of the teams that are in front of the Raiders aren't necessarily going to have to go for a quarterback or a high-profile pick. So I believe there are opportunities, but we'll address that as we go along. Look, the finish strong shows me that these guys are being professional in that locker room. All this past month and some change, JT, I know you've been asked the same question. How come we don't tank? How come we don't just shut it down? I don't know how you do that as a professional. If you walk into a basketball player and say, hey, miss a couple of shots, that's point shaving. That's illegal, right? You can't do the same thing with either football players. You're not going to tell them, you're not going to tell me you don't have to go out there and give it my all because you're hoping to draft someone else. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy to let my team down. So I'm impressed with how these coaches and these players have been approaching these past few games.
Happy New Year, Link. Best to you and the boys. Have a great year coming up.
Happy New Year, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
There's the great Lincoln Kennedy. How blessed are we to have him the entire year on multiple platforms here. This is our lineup if you're watching the morning tailgate. Our morning show, Vinny Bonsignore, Clay Baker. Vince Sapienza was added this year. Great job. The Rich Eisen show I'm on every day. Pacific time, noon to 2. And then Q Myers, Unnecessary Roughness, comes on after this show for 3 hours. So coming up next, we'll have the head coach, Antonio Pierce, after winning 2 in a row. We'll get into it with him on the travel dilemma of getting out there, how the team played hard. Aiden O'Connell. Got to give Aiden a lot of credit here. Aiden's been injured a few times this year. He didn't start the season off, and then he got the starting job. Then he went down and then came back again. He's playing with a lot of heart. Amir Abdullah, I want to ask the coach about him too and the way he's playing. And for a defensive line that doesn't have Christian Wilkins, doesn't have Max Crosby, and never had Malcolm Kuntz, what a job they've done. Over the last month or two, they're getting after the quarterback, which is really important. And, man, Isaiah Palomal, he was the AFC Defensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago and came back with another big game. So a lot good happening here from a personnel perspective. A lot of reserves, practice squad players were called on to step up, and they're playing hard. And that's been the theme of this season as they're still searching for wins. Head coach Antonio Pierce joins us next. This is Raiders Rundown.
From Caesars Superdome today, Week 17, Saints and Raiders.
O'Connell could not deliver the pass as he was grabbed and then floats it to Brock Bowers, who passes Mike Ditka for the most yards by a rookie tight end in NFL history. Coming across the field, O'Connell to the near side for Myers and a touchdown. This time the Raiders cash in. A 5-man rush, and over the middle it is caught. It is Brock Bowers. His 5th catch of the day puts him past Puka Nacua for the most catches by a rookie. Too high, diving attempt, picked off by Jack Jones. O'Connell seeking, serving, and surging, and Lowe's has got a man. It is held on to for the touchdown. Man into a tight window, and it's picked off by Thomas Harper. And they can celebrate with wins in back-to-back weeks.
It's Darnay Holmes here with the You Are Enough nonprofit. I'm a Las Vegas Raider. I partner with JD Sports to do a holiday activation. It's such a good night. These kind of shoes. Shoes are something that's very essential. And I believe that because as you put on your laces, you're stepping towards your calling. You're walking towards your purpose. Most importantly, you're walking towards the moment that's coming your way. The kids are enjoying themselves. The kids have smiles on their face.
Just want to say a big thank you to Darnay Holmes and the Raiders for hooking up Child Haven. You are so excited. They're so ecstatic to be here. He just opened up his heart.
got DJ, we got snacks. It's just great to be out here, great to be able to serve.
Thank you, JD and Clark County, for bringing the kids out and enjoying themselves, man. We having a good time.
Cole Keith, outside linebacker, Faith Lutheran High School. My dad played tight end at Oklahoma State, so growing up and him just being like my role model to start playing and get to the next level and play college football as well, it really inspired me. Just recently, some players from our team went to the Sunrise Children's Hospital, and we played games with some of the kids there, and just showed them some like pictures of us playing football, and like gave them some posters for our upcoming games. And one of the kids actually came to our game and some of our practices, so that was really cool to see how inspired he was to watch us and kind of see how we do things. Thank you to God. God always comes first in my life, and then my mom and my dad and my brother just really inspired me my whole life. Thank you, Las Vegas Raiders and Intermountain Health. Go Raiders.
Would you look at that? The NFL's most prolific tight end. A man of few words.
Rookie of the month, how does that kind of hit you as you heard about it?
That's cool. I don't know.
And impressive evasive maneuvers.
You don't have a nickname?
No.
Who is all about football.
I'm excited. It's football.
Yeah, I just catch and run. I don't know.
And beloved by all.
One and only Brock Bowers. All right. Thanks, man. Nice tight end week.
Guy's a legend. We're all ready.
Oh, really?
Bowers still going. Brock Bowers bulldozes his way. Brock Bowers pulling it in.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in that locker room had a big smile because no one wants to lose. Just win, baby. Commitment to excellence, the will to win. We'd like to get Robert Spillane in the Pro Bowl. I think he's done enough.
What are you talking about? It's 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl caliber.
That's why we got to talk about it.
I got to cut you off on this one.
Yep.
He's one of the best linebackers in football.
This guy, when you watch him play, he's a football player. Where they're able to put him on the field, it just makes him limitless.
Head coach Antonio Pierce joins us. Coach, congrats on the win. And as it showed up in the stat sheet, everything went together correctly. How'd you see it?
Team effort. First complete team win. Complimentary football across the board from special teams. Came out the gate offensively, right? 17-play drive. Got right there. Wish we could have kicked, obviously scored a touchdown there, but obviously we got points on the board. And then the biggest thing we always talked about is winning that middle eight, right? The last 4 minutes of the second quarter, going into the third quarter, thought we did a really good job there defensively, offensively, putting more points on the board. And then I thought we really imposed our will at the line of scrimmage. Both O-line and D-line, I thought, played their butts off, very physical. Kind of the approach we've been really hoping for all season long came to fruition on the road.
Let's get into Aiden, 242, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, his footwork, mobility. What'd you see?
I mean, just really good quarterback play. I thought he did a really good job of keeping his eyes down the field. O-line did a good job of protecting him. We only gave up 1 sack in that game, but his eyes stayed down the field. And for him, really good job just in the pocket awareness, moving around, not giving himself up, keeping his eyes down the field. Some big throws to Brock, to Trey Tucker down there in the end zone for a touchdown. I thought he was very poised, and he did exactly what we expected, right? We knew they were come on to cover 2 in a shell-type defense. He took what they gave us early on, took a lot of checkdowns, and then as the game kind of evolved, we took our shots down the field. And I really think that opened up our passing game, more importantly, our run game.
Let's spend some time on Amir Abdullah. When I spent time with him in Costa Mesa about his longevity and his career, it just goes to show you, next man up, and at the end of the year, you're calling on him to do a lot more than you expected maybe in the beginning of the year.
30-year-old plus running back rushing for 100 yards first time in his career. How about that?
Something.
Right? He's a returner. He's just a specialist. Right. And he gets an opportunity. We always talked about it, within our team. Like, you never know when your number's going to get called. And look, this week said, look, Amir's going to be the starter. And we go out there, and he makes some very critical third-down runs. I look at some of those plays. To me, those are the biggest plays in the game. Obviously, a really good receiver out the backfield, but stepped up in pass protection. Can't speak highly enough of a player like Amir in year 10-plus, doing whatever the team asks him to do. And obviously, there's a lot of thread on those tires, but he looked like a young, fresh running back out there. And he really gave us that juice, talked to the team after the game. He's done a really good job, man. Just from a leadership standpoint on a team that's very young, he's given us that that long tooth and wisdom that we need.
Let's stay with that in your coaches too, on how they coach other position groups. When you look at a player like that and say, "Look, you could be a rookie, you could be a practice squad player, get called up. Watch this guy and what he's doing."
Yeah, I just think it's a testament to everybody because we're playing with such young guys, and it's easy to use that as an excuse, right? Why you're not winning, why things are not going your way. But that's not the case. I kind of relish in that. That really tells you a lot about your coaching staff and your team if you can bring along these younger players. Look, all our rookies dressed and played, right? All these guys that we drafted, undrafted guys that we brought from other teams, guys that we claimed, they keep stepping up. And I think, when you see this, first, second-year players, and you got your Colton Millers, your Robert Spillanes, you see these guys playing. So you got the guys that you can look up to, but then you got these young guys that's kind of wet around the ears, and they just want an opportunity, and they're making the most out of it.
From the second half of the year on, you and I spent a lot of time in this studio talking about Brock chasing a record. We're going to get him the ball, the targets, and all that, and he's handled that well. What was it like for you in the locker room after the game with those 3 balls that he had for the 3 different records, and to finally look at this young man and say, okay, we did it, now it's on to the next game?
I'm just happy he took the picture. I'm just glad he actually gave us what we needed, to take the picture and all that good stuff and be a part of it, and even ask him to break down the team. And he's really quick, man. All he wants to do, I know the records we're talking about, is win games.
Yeah,
the guy's been a winner his entire college career, and he's not used to losing. And I know he gets all the stuff that we're talking about with catches and receptions. He just wants to win, and that's the happiest I've seen him in the locker room. The big smile reminded me of the Baltimore game where he was really happy then as well. But I think when we do talk about his production, is really impressive because there's no hidden agenda what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're going to game, we're throwing the Brock.
Got to get it to him.
Got to get to him. And they're doubling him. He's got corners. He's got safeties. They're hitting him at the line of scrimmage, man, and he's just a relentless player. And the one thing about him, just an ultimate competitor. Right, it doesn't matter. You see him in the running game. He really takes toe. He understands that, look, he's catching over 100-plus balls. But there's some times we need you to go block that D in. You need to go get Chase Young, and he's doing that. And when you look at this season, I think when it's all over said and done, we're going to look at it this was a special player that we really hit on in the draft in round 1.
Absolutely. I want to get into the travel. Fans travel all the time, and they don't have the luxury of a charter, but every once in a while something goes wrong. So take us through the timeline. You come back to the building. I haven't heard that before. You make the decision as a head coach. We're going to start our meetings because you can't do it in New Orleans. I got to assume the players aren't going to get quality sleep unless they get it on the plane. How did that come about?
Well, let's just go through it. I'll go quickly, right? Day starts at 8 o'clock. We come in here. We have our meetings, team meeting at 9 o'clock. Everything's moving very fluid and good, right? Fine. About to get on the bus and leave, kind of get a message, hey, we've got some issues going on with the plane. We'll be fine. So we leave, a couple minutes later. We get on the bus, get to the airport. We're on the plane, sitting there, kind of doze off because, that's the best sleep you can get on the plane. Right. It's quiet. And about an hour later, I realized we haven't moved. And now, I start to see the players, and I see some stuff going on. I'm like, hey, listen, man, we can't do this. So we made a decision, myself, talked to Telesco about it. Look, we're just going to reset our whole day. So we got off the plane, got on the bus, came back to the facility, told everybody to come back in 5 hours. And we did all our meetings here at the facility at headquarters, and then got back on the plane at 6 o'clock, 6:30, took off at 7:15. Wow. Landed, got to the airport in New Orleans, say around 12:20, 12:15. Got to the hotel at 12:30. I think I went to sleep at 2 a.m. and got up and played. And, it was really interesting because I was a little nervous. Got up in the morning for breakfast, went down there, and I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, how many guys are here? They're like, Coach, everybody's here. And this is 8 o'clock in the morning, so we only slept for about 6, 7 hours. I'm like, oh, we're good. I'm not even worried about it. And you can just see they're bright-eyed. And the good part about it was a positive, agitated, pissed-off group.
Yeah, right.
They weren't. They're like, we're not going to use this as an excuse. It's just another obstacle for us, right? We dealt with adversity all year. And that's the one thing I said in my post game, and I said to the team, and I've been saying all year with this team hasn't flinched. There's been no blinking. There's been no bitching or complaining. Guys just line up and play, man. That's the good part about it. The culture, the standard, the way we go about our business is what it is. I get the results for what they are, but these guys have a mindset of just playing football and whatever it takes to play.
And your equipment group has to go right to the dome. That's what I want to get into. They don't get to sleep. They're up, and they go to the dome. They got to set the lockers up, get everything going. How about a game ball for what those guys
First
did?
of all, everybody on that plane that traveled with us gets a game ball because that was a hell of a job by our entire organization of just, listen, man, by all means necessary, get it done. They had to go to the stadium, like you're talking about, to get that ready and prep for the next day. And everybody involved it was all hands on deck. Let's be honest, all hands on deck. And it's weird. We kind of relished it. Everybody kind of got excited, like, hey, what can I do? Can I help? And really hands off to our support staff and everybody, our coaches, everybody, man. Everybody on that plane, nobody, there was no blinking, man. There was no complaining. It was really good to see. And I think that's why you saw the joy and excitement from the team post-game. Because, like, hell, we went through all this, and this is what we did? We went out there and dominated for 60 minutes? It wasn't close. No. Right? Let's make sure we understand that. This team played their asses off for 60 minutes. And that's all we've been asking for our team to do late in the season. In a what? When everybody says a meaningless game, what the hell does that mean? We're pro players. We're pro coaches. We get paid to play 17 games in an 18-game season. And that's what they did. And my hat's off to our organization, our team.
Let's get on to the Chargers. It's kind of tough to look at them there. You know the team, you're very familiar, but what are they playing for with their playoff position? How do you coach that, wondering what's going to happen with their position on Sunday?
I'd love to answer that question about the Chargers, but this is about the Raiders.
Okay.
We entered the year in 2024 with a win. Mm-hmm. We're going to start the year in 2025 with a win. And that's our mindset, that we're going to win this game. We're going out there. I hope they play their starters for 60 minutes. I don't want to hear no excuses. That's not our problem. Our job is to finish the season on a 3-game winning streak. We want to win this game for our organization, for our fans, for our team, for all the guys that's busted their ass throughout this entire time, through the ups and downs of the season, and kind of put a bow on this 2024 season in 2025 with a win.
One last thing on the Chargers, their philosophy now. They have Herbert who can throw it as good as anybody, but they wanted to turn into a running team this year. So when we look at Jim Harbaugh and what you've seen from the team this year, what type of description would you give to the Chargers?
Yeah, they're physical. They're physical. I mean, they're downhill. There's no fair dodging. Okay. They don't hide what they're going to do. They come in, they bring this big fullback in, 300-plus pounds, number 44. They got the big running backs behind them, and obviously they got a very talented, elite quarterback. They can make all the throws, and we know we're up for it. And this is a great challenge, a great way for us to really put on display for our home crowd, Raider Nation, one last time in the 24th season and get this dub at home.
Happy New Year, Coach.
Happy New Year's.
Feel good, man. No sleep. Don't matter, man. I trust this team. I love this team, man. Way to come down here and steal us one, man. Walk in your trash, take over your trash.
Say we might be delayed, but we ain't gonna be denied. We ain't being denied. And no matter what the we do, we can show up this at 11:05. As long as kickoff is 12:05, we good. Yeah. That's the mindset. That's the mindset, man. The most important thing, to be honest, man, is the team. The team, man. Special teams, offense, defense, man. There's no blinking, no flinching in this group throughout this whole season, man. And all this is just another testament to you guys. I always say, this ain't about me, this ain't about nobody else, it's about you, 53 gentlemen in this building. You run the show. When you make up your mind, it happens. By all means, that say don't matter, man. However we got to get it done. You guys scratch your claw, man. Proud of you, man. Proud of you. Break it down, man. Break it down.
There. Hey, family on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I'm Jamari Williams. I go to school at Mojave High School, and my position is the D-line, nose guard, and defensive tackle. What I learned playing for my school is that you're not going to be the best player, especially you have to be able to work harder than everybody, especially with playing football. You might not be the strongest, but it's really about who works the hardest. I do volunteer with my godmom with the coding class. I've did a food drive before, and I gave food away to the homeless. I feel that you gotta give back to what's making you the person you are, because where you from is also a big part of who you are too. Thank you, Intermountain Health and the Raiders, for this opportunity.
Today we're at the 4th annual Holiday Huddle with the Las Vegas Raiders. We're here at the Smith's Marketplace on Lake Mead Parkway, and we're celebrating this Holiday Huddle by having 8 families in the community do a shopping spree here with the Raiders.
I think I'm with you. You ready to go? Can I get some high fives?
We give them $1,000 each to do a shopping spree, and I know you can measure $8,000, but it's immeasurable to talk about the joy that potentially these families feel as they go do the shopping and as they see these superstars in their community.
Let's not be shy now. We got $1,000 to spend. I think it's good. This looks good.
Everything here, I'm so emotional. I'm thankful.
I'm starstruck. My kids are enjoying themselves, seeing them happy. This is their Christmas.
See them light up when they saw something and to be able to, help them through that process, give them back, great time to serve.
My name's Liz Gresham, and I'm from both the Bay Area and Las Vegas.
I'm Dana Morse, and I'm from Rochester, New York.
I would describe myself as a rabid fan.
I think about the Raiders almost every minute of every day.
I have a Raider villa. The house is Raidered out. We have Raider curtains, we have Raider carpet. Everybody that comes in, they know they're in the Raider villa.
What I love most about the team is the fans.
And just the camaraderie of all of the fans and the people. It's just the whole big picture of what it means to be a Raider fan.
Raiders! Raiders.com is your home for all things silver and black. Read Levi Edwards' article breaking down his 3 key plays, including Brock Bowers' record-breaking receptions and Amir Abdullah's career-high performance, which all led to a Raiders win in New Orleans. To stay up to date on all things Raiders, go to Raiders.com/news. Welcome back, everybody, to Raiders Rundown. JT along with Levi Edwards. Straight back with a victory from Bourbon Street. A lot of travel issues to get there, but you got on the ground. You saw some Raider Nation outside the dome, inside the dome, and the Raiders got the win.
Most definitely. That's all that matters is getting the win. Obviously, I kind of joked with a couple of my friends. We didn't really get to New Orleans in our timing, but we got there in God's timing, and that's really all that mattered. Despite whatever sleep the team did or did not get, did not matter. They came in and they really dominated for really all 4 quarters. So,
the 38 minutes in the overall time of possession was key. You've done an unbelievable job this year charting Brock Bowers. You have access to him in the locker room, on the road. You fly with the team. Just give me a big picture on the journey from Costa Mesa, even before that, to draft pick at number 13 and now breaking all these records. What does it mean?
It means a lot to him, and I'm really glad you asked. All you guys, Raider Nation, we have a feature story coming out on Brock Bowers actually later this week or today. So I'm really excited for you guys to read that, to really get into the mind of Brock Bowers. I guess the best way to put him as a person and just him as a player is a complex simplicity. And I know that sounds really weird, but he's a guy that really just likes to keep things simple. And the way that he plays on the field is just with freedom. He just plays free, and he plays to be a force to be reckoned with, even though off the field he's not really necessarily like that. He's a very calm, poised young man, does not really like to interact with the media a whole lot, does when he needs to, but he's really just an all-ball guy. And to see him develop in the way that he has, not even just becoming more comfortable on the field, but more comfortable around the locker room and the building, really just doing what he does. He's just a low-maintenance superstar. I don't know a better way to really put it. He's just a guy that comes in, he wants to ball, he wants to do his job, and he wants to go home and enjoy his family.
It reminds me in a way of Marcus Allen when he played for the Raiders. So low-key. And Marcus is low-key now if you see him at the games. And Brock is different because this is a franchise that had the Mad Stork, Ted Hendricks and Ken Stabler, Phil Villapiano, guys with bravado who would talk and tell you what they thought. I just love the fact that Brock is all ball. Let's get into the Raiders secondary. Really like the growth of this unit. I wish Jacorian Bennett was healthy so he'd be getting all these reps opposite of Jack Jones. But Trayvon Merrick and Isaiah Palomalo on the back end, what have you seen the last couple weeks?
I've seen them really play great complementary football. And really, when I look at Trayvon Merrick and the season he's had, he's evolved into the guy that I believed he would become when he was drafted out of TCU, and he was the Jim Thorpe Award winner. And really, they've been able to find his niche in play calling with him, of just utilizing him all over the field. When he got to the Raiders, he was just a guy who was like a single high safety, really stayed in the backfield, didn't want anybody to go deep on him. But they got him in man coverage. They got him in the box. They got him blitzing. They got him doing a whole lot of things with a lot of different schemes within that defense, with Patrick Graham really utilizing him to the best of his ability. And the same thing with Palomalo, where he's become a better communicator. And that was the thing that we needed to see from him when he replaced Marcus Epps, is how will he be able to communicate? How will he be able to step into that role? And he's a guy that won AFC Defensive Player of the Week two weeks ago with the 2 forced fumbles, a guy that is really athletically gifted, really built, and can also do the same multi-dimensional things that you see Trayvon Merrick doing, and really just good guy. Isaiah, when I talk to him in the locker room, whenever I have any sort of interaction with him, he's just a good guy, really level-headed, a guy that really wants to make the most of his opportunities. So I'm really glad to see him doing as well as he is.
Levi Edwards is our guest from the digital team. Check out all his work at Raiders.com. Very important. I'm going to follow up on that. Going into the year, this is a Trayvon Merrick contract year, so I wanted to know what he could do. Not only has he played well, other teams are probably going to be interested, along with the Raiders. And Isaiah Palomal, I look at him, he had to find his way to find a starting job in this league, let alone the Raiders, and he's elevated himself there. That is coaching. That is Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham taking 2 players. We know the season hasn't lived up to the hype. We know what the record is. But they're coaching those guys right to the end, and they're playing their best football.
Most definitely. It's gonna be some tough decisions to make for Tom Telesco when you have a guy like Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Merrick, Isaiah Palomal, Devon Diablo. Robert's playing a lot of these guys, that have some contract stuff coming up, and they really have risen their stock. And all credit to Patrick Graham for really getting this defense to invest. And it's crazy to think about how we've seen the best defensive football from the Raiders these past 4 weeks with no Max Crosby, no Christian Wilkins, no Malcolm Kuntz, no Jacorian Bennett. Nate Hobbs has been in and out. So it's crazy how these guys are stepping up. 8 turnovers over the last 4 games, bunches of sacks, a lot of pressure, 44% pressure percentage in the 4 games without Max Crosby this season. So it's just really been incredible to see a lot of these young guys step up and really fulfill their role and buy in.
That's a great point you make. If you include Epps and Hobbs, which you did in Bennett, those are 6 out of 11 starters gone for most of the year. I mean, we're talking about the core of the defense.
The whole defense.
The whole defense being on IR or injured and being gone for a while. It's crazy to look back on that. Let's talk about the Chargers and their offense. Justin Herbert's one of the greatest live quarterbacks I've ever seen, and I've seen them all, from Montana to Elway to Marino. His arm, I've seen him throw the ball 30 yards to the back of the end zone at Allegiant Stadium where defenders who are as far away of us couldn't put their hand up and knock it down. That's how great he is when he throws the ball on target. But Jim Harbaugh is taking away his attempts, and he's lessening them so they can run it. But what jumps out at me is Dobbins when he's healthy and Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey played with Bowers at Georgia. I knew he'd be a decent player. I thought he'd be a 3, and he's putting up 2 numbers here. He's having a hell of a year for the Chargers.
He really is, and kind of going back to what you're saying about Herbert, Justin Herbert has one of the prettiest balls I've seen. He has one of the prettiest balls thrown that I've seen in a long time in the league. Him and Michael Penix right now, I really like the way that they throw the ball. And really, the fact that Jim Harbaugh's been able to come in and really just make the team not one-dimensional, but really get things going on the ground. J.K. Dobbins is a guy who I think should win Comeback Player of the Year, if I'm being honest. A guy that's fought through so many injuries and has really become a focal point of this offense and has made them a lot less predictable. Because when you're facing Justin Herbert in the last couple of years, the Raiders have either gone to SoFi or they've come here. If you get pressure on Justin Herbert and you make him a one-dimensional quarterback, you'll come out and you'll probably win the game. But now with the way their offense is set up and the way that they're run blocking and the way they're doing things, it just makes things so less predictable when you go up against Justin Herbert. And he really has a receiver 1 in Ladd McConkey, and he's a guy I didn't really necessarily know if he was going to be as good as he is out the gate. But this is a guy, just like Brock Bowers, I saw in the SEC. I watch a lot of SEC football as an Alabama guy. And he was a dog, literally and metaphorically a dog at Georgia. So to see him come out and do what he's been doing along with Brock is really something that I'm shocked but not surprised by, just by the production.
McConkey's coming off the game in New England, 8 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that's a big-time performance. So we're not going to know until kickoff what the Chargers' philosophy is going to be. Do they want to play the starters a half? Do they want to play them a quarter? Do they want to play them 2 series? I mean, Antonio Pierce sat where you are moments ago, and he said he didn't care. He just wanted to talk about the Raiders and what they're going to do. The Raiders are bringing the energy to this game. They're playing to go 3 in a row into the offseason, which means something to this team. For a guy who's embedded in the team, knows how disappointing this season is, Tell us about this game coming up and what those players in the locker room are playing for, because several will not be back. This is the last game they'll ever play for the Raiders in that famed uniform, and I expect them all to go out there and play the toughest and most physical game of the year.
You're exactly right. I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, JT, because I'm not immune to the comments on the internet. I'm not immune to what the fan base is saying. And honestly, a lot of them are upset that we're winning games now because they wanted to tank and they wanted to get a higher draft pick. And I'm here to tell you and tell everybody else, the guys in that locker room, they don't give a damn about any of that. A lot of them aren't going to be here next season. They're playing for the shield on their helmet, and they're playing for the last name on the back of the jersey. And you've seen that over the last few weeks of them really coming out, playing with effort, playing for each other. And despite whatever the record is, even when I was talking to Amir Abdullah, who had a career game against the Saints, he said, we're playing for each other, and despite whatever the record is, this is one of the closest teams I've ever been a part of because we play for each other, we care about each other, we've seen each other at our worst. And so you can expect, no matter what the Chargers decide to do, whether they go full starters or not, they already have a playoff berth locked in. We don't know what they're going to do. What I do know is that the Raiders are going to come out and they're going to play with effort, they're going to play with pride, and they're going to play like they have everything on the line. No matter what draft positioning is, no matter what the record is, no matter, no playoffs, any of that, they're going to come out and they're going to play with passion.
Yeah, and if you want the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft, the Raiders can go up and trade for those players. They're probably not going to be there to select at 1 and 2, and that happens. And I said, tank season and conversation's over. It ended on my shows. It's over. We're going into a new year. But the Raiders have an all-time record, wins and losses. And when it started off in the 60s and they had some rough roads and Mr. Davis came in and had one of the greatest turnarounds ever, they were the team of the decades in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And now the last 20 years, they've had up and down seasons and losing seasons. They want to win every game because it's going to matter 50 years from now, 40 years from now, what their lifetime record is against a team in their division. This is a division rival. I tip my cap to the Chargers. They're going to the playoffs. I didn't think they would. It's a testament to what they've done in their offseason, which the Raiders are going to have to match in the upcoming Raiders offseason. Give me one takeaway you want to see in this game. One thing at Allegiant Stadium the last time in front of these fans you must see.
I really just want to see the defense ball out. They've really impressed me over the last couple of weeks, especially with how much they've lost, in terms of a depth. In terms of depth, they've lost over the season. And to see these young guys really come out and make plays, you see DeCam Richardson, you see Jonah Laulu, you see Thomas Harper, you see all these guys coming out and making plays and really showing what they can do moving forward. And that's what it comes down to is what I want to see in this game is I want to see a glimpse of the future. I want to see a glimpse of what is to come. And that's really the what I'm really looking forward to, not even really on defense, but even really in all 3 phases of the game. I want to see those young guys come out and show why they belong on this team next year.
Lastly, let's get into Robert Spillane. He gets no respect around the league compared to how great of a player he is. And look, he's not an elite Ray Lewis type of player, but he reminds me of Greg Biekert when Greg Biekert played here and developed such a great career with the Silver and Black. So the Pro Bowl, his opportunity to be known more around the league next year, the Raiders got to make a decision with him coming up. I think he's a hell of a player. He represents this organization and this city in high regard.
I have to agree with you, JT, and like you said, a Rodney Dangerfield level of no respect when it comes to Robert Spillane in the season that he's had. He's a guy. My father, he's a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I have watched a lot of Robert Spillane play even before I saw him here with the Raiders, and he was a guy I believe was typecasted as a third and short run-stopping linebacker, and he's come here and he's really flipped the switch. He's completely changed the narrative of being an every down linebacker, being able to have sideline-to-sideline instincts and speed. He almost had his 3rd interception of the season, against the Saints. Played another really great game. Has been the anchor of the defense without Max Crosby in there. So he's a guy that has done everything above and beyond what the Raiders could have asked for when they signed him a season ago. And he's a guy that I believe should be a Pro Bowler, deserves to be a Pro Bowler. And just to see his maturation, not even just from when he first came to the Raiders to now, but just going back to when he was from Pittsburgh to now watching him, he's just a completely different player.
Hey, have a good New Year. You've been great to us this year. You have a nice career going. I read everything you put out there, and so do the fans at Raiders.com. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate Raider Nation always.
You got it. There he is, Levi Edwards, everybody, as we wrap it up, as we keep going here. So I want to thank everybody for this hour as we're on Raiders YouTube. And you can check out my YouTube channel heading into the new year, JT the Brick. YT. This is our lineup for those who are watching the morning tailgate. The Rich Eisen Show, noon to 2 is when I come up, and Unnecessary Roughness with Q Myers here every day. And Q, I'm going to give him a big shout out. The guy's everywhere. He's our program director. He works for ESPN. He does national shows and does a great job getting us to the Super Bowl, where we'll be live on Radio Row from New Orleans for our Super Bowl coverage here on the flagship of the Silver and Black. So thanks, everyone. This is our last show of 2024. We have much more programming coming up here in 2025. We'll be at the Torch. Man, I'm going to do the pregame show with Eric Allen at the Torch, and we got a nice surprise for you right after our pregame show. So try to come up there if you can. Keep watching and listening to all of our programming. It's all connected at Raiders.com and on all the social media channels. For everyone at Silver and Black Productions, I want to wish you a great new year, a happy new year. I hope it's safe, I hope you're healthy, and I hope it brings the Raider Nation together. And this offseason, as I've said on all my platforms, will be it's clearly the most important offseason in Las Vegas Raider history. I think it's going to be one of the most important in the past 20 or 30 years. A lot's going to happen, and you're going to read about it, you're going to watch it, and you're going to listen to it all right here at Raiders.com. Once again, have a great, healthy, and happy new year.